What's up, nerd family? Welcome once again to the Poindexter Lounge on the road. You guys seem to like these on the road videos because they're car videos. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that. Actually, they're minivan videos because I'm a dad and I need a minivan. My wife gets to drive the Equinox. I'm driving the old beat up van, you know. Oh, hey, stuff's swinging around. Anyways, you guys say that you like these personal videos, and it's been a while since I've done these kind of things, and just like upload a video. So I'm gonna upload some of these kind of things, and hope you guys like them. And if you get sick of them, just tell me. But I'm gonna tell you how I started my first band. So I was always a singer. I've been singing since I was about 9 years old, sang in church, you know, things like that. And I actually, when I was younger, I used to perform. I would perform at events and things like that. And me and my family, we actually traveled around the country, and we would do services at different churches and, you know, events and stuff. And so I actually got the opportunity when I was 12. We went out to Riverside, California, to a studio out there, and I recorded my first album. I sound like, you know, like I was the fourth member of the Chipmunks because I was, you know, 12. My voice hadn't changed yet. But, in fact, when Landon first heard me on that album, he laughed, and he's like, he didn't know it was me. And he's like, who is this girl? So there you go. I had a pretty high voice back then. Anyways, so I did that, and then when I was about 13, about a year later almost, I went and recorded another album, same studio out in Riverside, and yeah, and so we used to travel. I used to do that. You know, I used to sing in competitions, stuff like that, but I didn't play an instrument, and so I had a guitar, but I couldn't find anybody to teach me how to play, and so it was very, very frustrating. I had this acoustic guitar, and I couldn't find anybody to teach me. And so I just kind of gave up. I gave that guitar away. I was like, forget this. So skip to about I'm 15. My grandmother got remarried, and the guy she was married to, he played guitar. For my 15th birthday, they bought me a Les Paul copy guitar, a Magnum guitar, basically. For those of you who are guitar players, you understand what that is. If you're not a guitar player, basically it means that there is a popular guitar called a Les Paul. It's named after Les Paul, you know, the guitar player. And so it's a very popular guitar, but these smaller guitar companies, they make copies so they look like Les Pauls, or they look like a Fender Stratocaster or whatever, or Telecaster, because they're the same shape, but they're, you know, it's not the same quality or whatever. So it was a beginner guitar, you know, but it was a Magnum. I wish that I had that guitar today. I really do, because it was my first guitar, my first real guitar, and you know, we ended up trading it in for some stuff out in Vegas one year, and because I got a new guitar, and I kind of upgraded from that guitar. But I wish that I had that guitar still, because it just means something special to me, you know. But so they got me a guitar for my 15th birthday, and I was actually ticked off because I didn't feel like, you know, I had somebody to teach me, and I didn't really think Mike was going to teach me how to play. And so I remember being ticked because I didn't ask for that guitar. You know, it's one thing if you ask for something, if you ask for an instrument, or you have an excitement that you want to do something, but I didn't really have that back then. And so they got me this guitar. Mike ended up showing me 3 chords. He showed me an A chord, a D chord, and an E chord. And I'm the type of person, like, I had already been writing songs, like, in my head and stuff. And so when I had this, like, I just started, you know, kind of playing up and down the neck. I didn't know, you know, even what I was doing. But I just write these little songs and stuff. And I remember I took that first week, like, I think my birthday was, like, on a Monday or something. And I took that first week, man, and I just learned those 3 chords. I jammed out those 3 chords. And our church at the time, it was very, very simple, you know. Like, I grew up in a very, very small church, like less than 20 people most of the time. I mean, there was a time, man, there was like 5 people in our church. So we didn't have musicians, you know. And so we had a guy who played guitar who had quit. He was getting older and he had quit, and so we just didn't have anybody at the time. So I took those 3 chords. I learned some choruses that I could play with those 3 chords, and if you grew up in the church, you know that, like, back in the day, there were just these choruses that we sang. They weren't necessarily hymns, but they were really popular in the 80s and the 90s and stuff, and they were just really, like, easy 3-chord songs. And so because I knew 3 chords, they went together, I learned how to make those things work. And so literally a week after I learned those 3 chords, I was playing in church, and that's where I cut my teeth for a year. I didn't know what a distortion pedal was. I didn't listen. I mean, I had listened to music and stuff, but I didn't know how to make those sounds that, like I heard the bands that were out at the time making. I had no clue. Until about a year later, I met my friend Rusty. Rusty and I had played baseball together when we were like 11 years old. We had been on a little league team together. And he showed up at my doorstep one day, and he knocks on the door, and I was about 16 at this point. And we started talking, and we just became best friends. We were like brothers, and we weren't that way when we were younger. Like, we weren't that close. But now Rusty is like my other half, man. Like, even if I haven't seen Rusty in like a couple of years now, but the next time I see Rusty, we will just be, how you have those people in your life that it's like you can go a little while without seeing them, but then all of a sudden it's like bam, you're right back in there. And that's how Rusty and I are. And I really hope to have him on the channel sometime. I got a video or 2 of him on here where we just kind of were hanging out, having some fun. But I'd really like you guys to meet him. So Rusty showed up, and Rusty was more of a lead guitar player. I was a rhythm guitar player at that point. I had been really learning rhythm and how to write songs and that, because that's what I set out to be. I just set out to be a songwriter. I didn't set out to necessarily be some great lead guitar player. But he knew more leads. He had a distortion pedal. He sounded cooler, right? I was probably the stronger guitar player overall, but he knew more like scales and stuff like that. And so we just started jamming together, and so we started hanging out. Like I said, became really, really close, and we started this little band called Living Proof. We tried to start a band, I should say, called Living Proof. And it was me, him, and this guy who was drumming. We had no bass player. We had looked for a bass player, could not find a bass player, and we did this show with this guy who was drumming, and it was a guy that I went to school with. And we found out some stuff about the guy that made us feel really uneasy. Now it's funny because that guy has now gone on to become a pastor in a different denomination, and he's a really great guy, But I had gone to school with him. He was involved in some pretty shady stuff though when we were in high school. So we had some concerns, and we kind of moved on from that. We did this one show, and I'll never forget, it was at this Catholic church. It wasn't even a church thing. It was just we used to go to this youth group, and I wasn't Catholic, but I had some Catholic friends. But we used to just go hang out on Monday nights at this place and just hang out with other young people, and more kind of a community thing. And but they had a gym, and they said that we could have a music night, and so we did. We had this music night, and we played, and it was fun. We did a couple of original songs, I think we did like a Metallica song and a Guns N' Roses song or whatever, and yeah, it was fun. So skip like 2 years, 2 or 3 years almost, probably about 2 years. Rusty and I were really wanting to start a band, and we could not find people, or we didn't know what the music scene was. We weren't into that, we weren't a part of that. We were young, we were teenagers, so it's really hard to break into that in some areas. And so we'd go to the music store. Nobody cared about who we were. We were just a couple, young punks, right? A couple of young kids. Nobody would pay any attention to us, and so just no credibility. It's not like you could just go start a band. So we did not know a bass player. So we went to a concert literally 120 miles away. All right, we went to go see one of my favorite bands, a band called Guardian, and I'm gonna try to get some of those guys on the channel to do actually an interview with, because I'd love to have you guys meet those guys if you don't know who Guardian is. So they were one of my bands that inspired me, and later got to open up for them and got to know them. But we went to this show, and it was Guardian and a band called Hocus Pick from Canada. We also ended up opening up for a few years later, and then a guy named Steve Taylor, who's very influential on me, and I love his music. Love his music. Very, very satirical, yet very poignant stuff, man. Like especially from a faith-based angle. Like you just don't see guys like this, really in anything. But really, you don't see guys like this, especially in Christian music, where it's just very sarcastic and not in a bad way, in a good way. Basically, putting social issues back up in your face, and making people have to deal with that stuff, right? But so it was really cool. But we got there like 3 hours early because it was a general audience show, right? And so we got there about 3 hours early, and this guy named Jeremy ends up walking up, and we're all outside. We're playing games out on the footstep there and of the arena, waiting for them to open the doors. And in the meantime, we meet this guy named Jeremy, and Jeremy starts talking about some stuff that that he likes and we like. Come to find out, he was a guitar player. We're like, oh, that'd be cool. Come to find out, the guy lived 15 minutes away from me, right? And we exchanged numbers. We said, we should get together sometime. And and maybe get together and jam. Just have some fun. And that was it. We went to the show, did our thing, had some fun, came home. I called him, a few days later, and I was like, hey, Jeremy, do you want to do this? Because he said he had a friend named Andy who was a drummer. And so we're like, yeah, let's get together. So we got together. They showed us some videos of some stuff that they had done because they had tried to start this band. Rusty had decided he was going to play bass, and he was a good bass player. He really was a good bass player. And so we went over to Jeremy's house, man, and we just jammed it out one night, and we wrote like a couple of songs that night. I had some things that I had been working on, and it was so cool because it really gelled well, and we were just four guys having fun in this spare bedroom of these guys, parents' house. And God bless Mrs. Aiello, I tell you what, because her bedroom was right next to the room that we practiced in. And I don't know how that woman did it, but she just went to bed. I guess she wore earplugs or whatever. And we're like, are you sure? She's like, no, go ahead, And I think we need more parents like that who encourage their kids. It's like, look, my son Landon plays drums, and now Landon has gotten really good. But there was a time where he was pretty rough, and like, and drums are really loud anyways, So when somebody's playing the drums, even if they're out, in the garage or we have a mud room between the garage and the house, you still hear it throughout the whole house. But you got to be able to give your kids the ability to play and have fun, And so she did that. She allowed us to do that. And because of that, we started this band. And my first band was called Antioch. And I was in that band for 10 years, And Jeremy ended up coming and going. Jeremy's younger brother ended up coming and playing with us months later. And that's when it really got good. And we ended up becoming known as a trio. And man, we did that for years. And then later Brian left, and my friend Matt came on, and man, it was really good then because Matt was a great vocalist, and we did a bunch of stuff, and that was just so much fun. I mean, we traveled, we recorded, we had fun, man. We just had a lot of fun, and that was what my band was, that first band, Antioch. It was just a lot of fun, and it lasted for 10 years. And the friendships that I have, me and Andy, the drummer, we become really close. I performed his wedding. I was there at the birth of his child, Josh. And now his son, Josh, and my son, Landon, are like really close and really good friends. His son plays drums and things like that. And so it's amazing to look back sometimes on those things and see, where you came from and what you did. But yeah, so that's my story. That's how I started my first band, Antioch. And there's some stuff here on the channel that you can look up and see some of the stuff that we did. All right, so that is that. And I should actually post some more stuff. I got tons of concert footage of me and my band. And like, look, we weren't the greatest band in the world, but we were a lot of fun. We had a lot of energy, and it showed. Like, we went from being like really sloppy and just like all over the place, but people loved us because we were entertaining, to like being more talented, I should just say, and more skilled, but we never lost that fun. We never lost that energy. And so Yeah. So if you play in a band or you're looking to start a band or something like that, go for it. Go for it. Do it. It's the most fun thing you can ever do. But never take yourself too seriously. Always have fun. All right. So that's all I got for today. But I got to go pick up now some yard stones and about 15 bags of mulch for Tiff. Doing my husbandly duty. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Have fun. Stay nerdy. Bye bye.